The following podcast is an exclusive presentation of Project Entertainment Network.
Thank you for coming to the Project Entertainment Network store. Please place your order. A good choice. A t-shirt for the horror show with Brian Keene. Amanda Method coffee mug. There's more. A Necrocast on hoodie. That's sharp. But why on earth would you want Bizong leggings? Wait, are you Mr. Frank? The Project Entertainment Network store, stacked with goodies from all your favorite podcasts. T-shirts, hoodies, mugs and more. www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
There shall come a podcast like no other. Defenders Dialogue with Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Marvel Comics' original superhero non-team convenes once again. The Incredible Hulk, the Savage Submariner, the Master of the Mystic Arts, Doctor Strange, and a dynamic supporting cast of Marvel superheroes battle against evil as the Defenders. Without further ado, true believers, here's your hosts, Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Excelsior!
And welcome back once again, true believers, to the final episode for 2019 of Defenders Dialogue. I'm Brian Keene.
And I am Christopher Golden. And Brian, I say a holiday Excelsior to you and to all our listeners. And I also say happy 85th episode. This is our 85th episode of Defenders Dialogue.
That's right. Did you ever think, when you had the idea, you know what we should do? We should just call each other and talk about comics every week and record it. Did you ever think we'd make it 85 episodes, Chris?
No, I did not. I did not. Although when you said you wanted to do like the Champions one issue an episode or something, I was like, no. At that point, we probably would be at, well, several hundred episodes now, but
we probably would. But yeah, this will be our last episode for this year. That does not mean that we're ending. We will be back in January with all new episodes, starting with Marvel's Godzilla. So you can read ahead, and then Supervillain Team Up, and then Man-Thing. That'll probably run us most of the year next year. But today, we're wrapping up our coverage of Black Goliath, issues 3 through 5.
Yes. Yeah, and it's interesting to me. Hang on one second. I'm going to turn this down a little bit because I feel like there's an echo. It's interesting to me that this is one of those cases where the material does not live up to the character.
Agreed.
There's so much that could have been done with Black Goliath, and I feel like it's just sort of treading water here. I think it's sort of like, well, we think we should have a comic featuring this character, but we really don't know what to do with him because he's cool, but they didn't invent a scenario for him to be in that would be as cool.
Agreed. I mean, you know, we start with Mantlo placing him in Los Angeles in issue 1. You know, he works for Tony Stark. You know, we get the start of a supporting cast. But, you know, as we mentioned on last week's episode, Mantlo is quickly replaced by Chris Claremont.
Tony Isabella on issue 1.
Or, excuse me, yes, Tony Isabella. Yeah, I apologize. I've got Bill Mantlo on the brain. I was just talking about him on an interview yesterday. But, you know, Claremont takes over, but it doesn't, he's absolutely treading water for these first, you know, issues 2 and 3. I think with issue 4 and 5, he was starting to put together what he wanted the book to be, and we see hints of that. Unfortunately, the book was canceled with issue 5. So,
yeah, well, let's get into it. I mean, I think it's really interesting. I'm not sure, and again, I don't know how much time we're going to spend on these because there's not really I don't feel a lot of passion about breaking down the specific plots, like sort of beat by beat here.
I don't either.
But it's Claremont and George Tuska and Vince Colletta on inks. You know, and we come back into the end of the story that we began last episode.
That's right. You know, Black Goliath has defeated Atom Smasher, unaware that he's in a sniper's crosshairs at the behest of a mysterious big villain who they very clearly want us to think is Kingpin, but is not Kingpin. And we open with that sniper taking a shot.
Taking a shot and actually connecting. The bullet grazes Black Goliath's skull. And then Black Goliath, takes cover. The Atom Smasher thinks he's been saved, but instead, he is the target.
Yes.
That Atom Smasher is snuffed out by the sniper, who apparently kills him on the page here.
Yeah. Now, I got to tell you, as somebody who is sniper trained in real life, this is the worst sniper ever fictionally portrayed. Because, Black Goliath is at his full height. So what is that? That's 15 feet, I believe. So he's 15 feet tall, and his body's proportions grow in ratio with that. So his head must be the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. Yet somehow this sniper misses him, only grazes his head.
Right. Well, although Brian, Black Goliath does think it was a setup. That sniper wasn't after me at all. See?
Well, then he's even still the worst sniper in the world. If he was aiming at Atom Smasher with that first shot, he came nowhere near him.
Yep. Well, he wanted to separate Atom Smasher from Black Goliath, so he'd have a clear shot at Atom Smasher. But in any case, Black Goliath goes after the sniper, and the sniper is just gone by the time he gets up there. Now, here we have something that is actually interesting, that Black Goliath has been growing and shrinking and growing and shrinking and growing and shrinking quicker than he's ever had to do that before. And he has a reaction to this. He has a physical seizure and shrinks unbidden. And, he's having cramps and he's, almost like a junkie.
Right. It's easy to see what Claremont was building towards here. Unfortunately, we never got that. However, I mentioned on last week's show, Black Goliath's story actually continues in Marvel 2-in-1. He becomes a supporting character there as, he's involved with Project Pegasus. And during that storyline, it's revealed that he has cancer. I have to wonder if the writer on that book picked up this thread here, these seeds that Claremont laid here. And instead of making it the fact that he's been using his power so often, he's like, oh, okay, well, this was the start of his cancer right here.
Right. Interesting.
I'd like to think that, Annie, because there's so many other unresolved plot points that are just left hanging with the cancellation at issue 5 that I like to think that one got picked up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, my hope is that eventually we will get to Marvel 2-in-1 because it's completely nuts.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so we get back to Stark International West with the Whiz Kids characters, the supporting cast. Tony Stark is on the video chat, and he's pissed off because he's looking for Bill Foster.
Yeah, and this is my favorite Tony Stark, by the way. This is the Tony Stark I loved as a kid, with the 80s hair. He looks like Tom Selleck,
Yes.
The high collars.
Yeah, without the Tom Selleck, without the Hawaiian shirts.
Yep.
Yeah. So he's pissed off looking for Bill Foster. And then we have, go ahead, Brian, then we have the sexual assault portion of this issue.
Yeah, I forget what name we gave him last week. Dale, the redheaded character.
Douche bro.
He kisses what is her name? Tal. He gives her a kiss, unasked for, and she slaps him and says, "Don't touch me. Don't you ever touch me." And she storms out, and he thinks that, well, it can't be that she doesn't like him. Clearly there must be something more. Something's wrong. Something's going on.
Yeah.
It's this whole weird subplot. We then see a segue where people are breaking into Stark West again, which just happened in the last 2 issues. But, we then get Tal in the parking garage, and we get this subplot connected to Vietnam. And if I sound like I'm glossing over it, I am, because it never gets resolved. Come the cancellation of the book, we don't know what this was,
right,
or where it was
due to the cancellation of the book, we never learn what any of this was building up to.
Yeah.
So she's clearly got some subplot going on here that was meant to go somewhere, but never had the time. And again, never had the time. You know, Sales, we'll read it at the back. There's a letter in the comic about Sales. But it's, it's disappointing because I have a feeling that it was a combination of not enough interest in general, not enough hype to get people on board to begin with, is my guess, but also not enough to hook them and keep them going.
Right.
You know, I read a lot of comics from this era, and there's just something sort of very flat about. Again, I loved the first issue, and even the second issue was pretty good.
They were absolutely what could have been. I mean, this could have been one of Marvel's biggest breakout books of the 70s. If they had kept the team intact and gone in that direction. Yeah. Instead, we get what is probably one of the most laughable panels from 1970s Marvel history. Tao is confronted by this new group breaking into Stark West. The caption tells us it's like a joke. 6 men in biker outfits and Halloween masks, sporting automatic rifles and anesthetic dart guns. But that's not what's drawn at all. They're wearing the Halloween masks. They have the guns, as mentioned, but they're all dressed like
members only.
Yeah, members only. I don't know what's going on. And then the dialogue. She says, "What is this?" And they say, "Nothing to concern you, Fox. Just be cool and you'll be straight. Dig. Take her skis. Keep her out of trouble." This is the 70s. Where did these guys come from?
Oh man, yeah. That panel was not great. Anyway, they zap her with their tranquilizer dart guns, and the guys inside,
Herbie and Dale,
Herbie and Douche Bro, hear her scream, and they go outside, but instead the wall is smashed in, by somebody with a lot of energy. And right. And then the Halloween mask guys open fire.
That's right.
Douche Bro has, if you people recall from last episode, built himself a personal force field generator as a vest. So he almost looks like a superhero. He tries it on. And not only does it deflect the bullets, he's able to throw himself at people, and the force field smashes them, protecting him and sort of smashing them. And that works great up until somebody with an incredibly powerful energy blast hits him from behind. And then, in my favorite thing that happens in these comics, Brian, from this era, we cut outside to the lonely superhero, Bill Foster, a.k.a. Black Goliath, walking down the street in his costume, but with a trench coat.
That's right.
But the legs of his costume are completely visible. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that's a standard. We've in earlier episodes of this podcast, Valkyrie and the Defenders used to do that move all the time.
Nighthawk.
Nighthawk, yeah. But yeah, he's having his monthly existential crisis, as all 70s Marvel characters did. And then he realizes that Stark West is once again under attack, as it has been since the first issue and the arrival of that mysterious box from Tony Stark, who, by the way, we still don't know what's in that box. Mm-hmm. So he comes in and he finds that Douche Bro is the force field generator is collapsing. It's actually crushing him. It turns out that Black Goliath built a quick release fastener into the force field vest, and he rips it off of Douche Bro, saving his life. Unfortunately, he cannot save the life of the police officers who show up, in response to the alarm, because suddenly the big bad guy from last issue is revealed. It's not Kingpin. It's this guy named Vulcan, and he smashes
who's
the police
basically Vulcan, folks. If you want to picture it, Vulcan is basically Quasimodo in Thundra's tights.
Yeah, or Charlie 27 from Marvel's own Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean the costume and the size are just about identical. So Black Goliath sees this attack on the cops, and he grows big, and then a fight begins. I don't know that we need to go through this whole fight.
Yeah, no, I don't have any interest in going through the fight. Yeah, I think we can sum up at this point, right?
Yeah. What happens is at the end, he defeats Vulcan, but the Stark West building collapses on top of them both. In the aftermath, he tells the cops by the time he dug his way out, Vulcan was gone, and an officer tells him, "So what do we got to show for one dead cop? Nothing but 6 cycle hop heads who are flying so high they'll be lucky if they can remember their names." He tells Black Goliath, why doesn't he go back to New York with the rest of the super freaks? LA's got too many crazies as it is.
But Black Goliath very firmly rejects that idea. He's not leaving. He now knows that he's meant for this life, that he's, and he's put down his roots here. Los Angeles is my home, you dig? So long as superpowered hotshots like Atom Smasher and Vulcan are running around my town, Black Goliath is going to be around to stop them. And then the toughest line of all, and if you don't like them apples, chum, you can lump them. Oh my God.
3 panels of Tony Stark's mysterious box buried beneath the rubble, and it begins to glow, which leads us into Black Goliath issue 4.
Now, Black Goliath issue 4, by the way, I did not post a picture of myself in the Black Goliath t-shirt. I need to do that. Black Goliath issue 4 has the additional title on the cover of 15 Feet of Fighting Fury, which I love. And I know you love the villain he's facing in this issue.
I do not love this incarnation of the villain. I love the incarnation from Frank Miller's Daredevil.
I know, with Turk.
Yeah, Turk as Stiltman. This Stiltman, not so much. But yeah, issue 4, written by Chris Claremont. The art team this time is Richard Buckler and Don Heck. As longtime listeners know, I'm a big fan of Buckler. His efforts on the Defenders, particularly Devil Slayer. So this is very cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see Buckler's art. Although I preferred Tuska here, and for some reason I think Claremont gets extra wordy in this issue, and Chris
he does.
Chris is, shall we say, notable for getting very, very wordy in his comics. So I admired the less wordy couple previous issues, and here he gets quite wordy. But I don't know, Brian. I mean, you love Stiltman, so tell me what's good about this.
What's good about this issue?
Yeah.
I found nothing good about this issue. Keep in mind, for new listeners, I did not read the Champions as a child. This is my first time reading the series. Or excuse me, not Champions, Black Goliath. My newsstand never carried it. This is my first time reading these 5 issues. Had I picked this one up at age 10, I probably wouldn't have picked up another issue of Black Goliath, and that's unfortunate. But there's not a lot going on here.
Right.
This version of Stiltman is a stupid villain.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just
we spend a lot of time, folks, with the whiz kids, and Tony Stark is frustrated with Bill Foster. There's some stuff going on there, and then Bill Foster reveals the theft that happened in the previous issue.
That's right.
The Commando Squad had broken in the previous issue of this comic and stolen the box pardon me, that Tony Stark had sent, Bill Foster still doesn't even know what's in the box.
That's right. And before Tony can tell him, their phone call is disconnected. And we transition back to Stark International headquarters. And Tony's government minder, Ballard, who I'd forgotten completely about, it turns out he's the one who disconnected the call. And he tells Tony that, he's preventing a possible breach of security. And that, unfortunately, Black Goliath is not on the need to know list. Certain activities in his past render his loyalty suspect.
Yep. So he gets frustrated. Bill Foster is very angry with Tony Stark for cutting him off at that point.
Right.
And again, we don't want to go through too much of this, but a couple pages later, Black Goliath is at police.
I got to give credit to Claremont for one thing. As I said, we start to see that he had an idea of where he wanted to go. He introduces several new characters.
Well, and that's what I was going to, because that to me is what's good about this issue.
Right.
Because we get he's at police headquarters, and a young man named Keith approaches, and Keith has been sent by his aunt, who happens to be Celia or Seal Jackson.
Who Black Goliath hooked up with back in issue 1.
Exactly. So apparently she's a little bit more than just a casual hookup for Black Goliath now. And she has sent her nephew Keith to hunt down Black Goliath and find him to say, "My aunt says the police will need you to stop him." So Black Goliath is trying to respond to that, and he goes off with Keith and the police.
Right. We then get another side plot that we're not going to focus on because it does not get resolved. It's this guy, Jerry Washington, and it turns out he stole the Stark International box. No explanation of how he got it from out of the rubble, but the box is beginning to glow.
Right. And that's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know.
Because now, we don't have an ending to that story.
Now, I think that we do. And when we come back to Jerry in the next issue, I want to talk about that.
Okay.
I believe this box was resolved, but not in a Marvel comic book. And I'll explain what I mean when we get to issue 5.
Well.
So, Black Goliath gets to the bank, and it turns out it's Stiltman robbing the bank.
And again, Brian, this whole issue is worth it, particularly, I suspect, for you. This whole issue is worth it for the double page, turn your comic sideways so you can see the spread of Goliath versus Stiltman.
It's absolutely worth it. As soon as I saw that visual, I decided, all right, that's going to be, our screenshot for our YouTube version of Defenders Dialogue.
Yeah, and that's what I want more of.
Yeah, it's some gorgeous, gorgeous line work there. Great inking. It's 15-foot tall Black Goliath versus Stiltman.
Yeah. Yep. All right, let's see. I'm flipping pages. I'm looking at the lovely ads and letters pages here.
Yeah, Celia Jackson shows up, and she gets knocked out by one of Stiltman's gas bombs, and Stiltman grows to a tremendous height, 300 feet tall, and drops Black Goliath, who goes plummeting towards the ground. And as he crashes, Stiltman grabs Celia to use her as a hostage.
Yeah, there you go. Holding her above his head, Keith runs out to try to save his aunt. And that is all the time that Black Goliath needs. He's able to smash himself free of the rubble. He saves Celia and Keith. And Keith then saves Celia from the weapon. But then they are caught in the sights of the much mocked during our Champions run Z-Ray. He fires the Z-Ray at Black Goliath, Keith, and Celia, and they vanish, Brian.
That's right. And he says, the power of my Z-Ray has been proven. Black Goliath is no more.
Which is not exactly true.
It's not exactly true.
Because
now,
all of a sudden, this comic book takes a very unlikely turn. A Very unlikely turn.
That's right. Now, before we get to that, I misspoke. This subplot with the box and the Z-Ray, it is in fact wrapped up. It's wrapped up in the Champions. Which right. I completely slipped my mind until we got to the friggin' Z-Ray. And then I'm like, oh, that's right. Jerry's girlfriend shows up at Champions headquarters.
That's right. That's right.
But what I was going to say, there's a Hollywood director who is a huge fan of Bronze Age Marvel comics. And that is, of course, Quentin Tarantino.
You think this box is the box from Pulp Fiction?
Well, I mean, you look at Pulp Fiction, there's all kinds of Marvel Easter eggs. The most apparent, being the Silver Surfer poster on his wall and, describing the mob boss as Ben Grimm, the Thing. I think the glowing box in Pulp Fiction is Tony Stark's box. And I suspect Quentin Tarantino never got that issue of Champions. So he resolved it himself.
There you go.
And I say that because as we get into issue 5 here, there's a sequence that we'll talk about, which echoes the sequence in Pulp Fiction. But yeah, issue 5, Claremont still writing. Keith Pollard now on art.
Actually, I really like Pollard's art in this issue.
I do, and Irving Watanabe as letterer, Bonnie Wilford as colorist. And I bring that up because the 5 issues, I think the colors in this one just snap, crackle, and pop. She did a fantastic job here. And yeah, it's bizarre, Chris. Tell us where we open.
I'm going to sum it up, Brian. We open in some parallel dimension. Let's see if they name it.
Well, they say if there's a hell in this universe, then its name is Kurgar.
Kurgar, yes. So we're on a planet called Kurgar in some parallel universe. And we are listening to the personal log of Far Scout Officer Durath Ath McClonan, or something like that. We're just going to call him Durath from now on, for all the times we're going to need to refer to him. It gets into that science fiction place. It gets into that classic 70s space that normally was reserved for Fantastic Four, sometimes other comics, but
right.
Generally Fantastic Four is a place where you'd find stories like this.
Right.
And I'll tell you what bothers me about this. It's so fucking random. It's like if this had been something that Bill Foster as a scientist or his employees at Stark International were working on something, some Tim Levin Coldbrook project that would end up shunting him into this alternate reality or parallel dimension, it wouldn't feel so abrupt, It's just so odd. But fine, it's all good. And it reads kind of cool, and it looks great. The art is great. But it's just so random. Like if you were a reader of this comic and you thought you were getting one thing, and then you got to this, you'd be like, this is not what I signed up for, although it's better than the last issue. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird, but I dug it. This of the 3 we've read today, this was definitely my favorite.
Oh, mine too.
So yeah, Durath meets Black Goliath, and Claremont very cleverly reverses the standard 70s trope of the first time 2 superpowered characters meet, they have to fight. It looks like it's heading in that direction. But then it does not, and Durath tells him, that he's stuck on this planet. He's an explorer, I don't know. He's stuck here on this planet, and now they're stuck here too, and they'll have to band together. And
shades of the Dennis Quaid, Lou Gossett Jr. minor classic Enemy Mine.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
It's cold, so he fashions them some clothes that they can wear that'll keep them warm. Then suddenly Cecilia is attacked by a saber-toothed tiger with porcupine quills.
Yep, which we like.
Yeah.
It's fairly random, but again, and there's nothing about this issue that isn't random. But again, I like this issue.
Yeah, I do too.
It's just such a switch of gears. And I just do think that Black Goliath was such a C-list character at the time that this was happening that it doesn't feel like, just summing up, because I know we're not done with this issue, but summing up on the 5 issues, it doesn't feel like an effort was made to bring a ton of readers to this series.
No.
And I'm not saying, Spider-Man should be in every comic, but, Tony Stark appears as Tony Stark a bunch, but never as Iron Man. I don't know. It just feels like, the first issue should have been an Avengers adventure with, Bill Foster, and he should have been left at the end of the first issue with a couple of minor superhero sidekicks, like young ones that he can bring along or something.
Right.
Only because, and again, I'm not saying those stories would have been better. I'm just saying that the series might have lasted longer if other things from the then popular Marvel universe had been included.
Right.
But kudos to them for giving him his own book to try.
Exactly. We then get a one-page segue where Jerry is trying to open Tony Stark's box, and he does. And it's this bright, brilliant, starborn glow that engulfs everything in the room. And it makes Jerry disappear, and it makes everything else disappear. And I'm telling you right now, Quentin Tarantino read this as a kid. And this is where the box and pulp, this is where he got the idea. I'm not saying he ripped it off. Understand me. We've talked on this show, the entity in my novel, Darkness on the Edge of Town, obviously very directly inspired by J.M. DeMatteis's novel Living Darkness. But I didn't realize that as an adult.
Right.
I'm telling you, Quentin Tarantino read this as a kid, and it helped subconsciously inspire Pulp Fiction. I stand by this argument.
Well, you need to get Tarantino on this show. We'll ask him that question. We'll tweet at him later. We'll see.
Yeah, we will.
Anyway, there's a very sort of Guardians of the Galaxy element to this, and again, 1970 Fantastic Four element to this. They're inside a giant pyramid that right. Goes much, much, much deeper underground than it does above ground, and it sort of goes on forever when they're inside it.
Right, and at the bottom of this pyramid, we're told that when the last warlord here on the planet Kurgar died, he left a guardian to protect his stronghold. And as our heroes venture deep beneath the pyramid, that guardian's eyes open.
Yeah. And then what I like about the outfits that have been generated by I should say that Durath, or whatever his name is, has a device that he carries at his hip. It's like, Brian, do you remember those label makers?
Yeah.
Well, you can make a label for anything by punching it out in this handheld device. This guy can make you clothes from.
Can I tell you something? I hate those label makers.
Right, and
Mary Sangiovanni has one of those label makers, and she will label everything in this house unless I hide it, as I often do.
Well, he can make clothes with it, they coincidentally they look like superhero costumes.
Yeah.
So now Keith and Celie look like superheroes, which is great.
That's right.
Anyway, you can tell I'm not that engaged by this. My favorite thing about this is as Keith and Durath are trying to figure out how to get them back to their home planet, they wonder where Aunt Celia went. And they go to look for them, and Aunt Celia and Black Goliath have found some quiet time.
Yeah, they're about to hook up again, and they're so into it and each other that they don't realize the guardian of the pyramid is about to sever them both with an axe.
I just love, hey, let's let the alien babysitter who's trying to get us back to our home planet babysit for my nephew Keith while we go hook up on the floor in the corner of the space pyramid.
Well, much like every 70s horror slasher movie.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Sex leads to death because Durath leaps in front of the plunging battle axe, and it embeds itself in his back.
Yeah.
And the Guardian then says, "I am Mortag, intruders, the Guardian of the Stronghold," and he's going to kill them.
Yeah, and Mortag is named beautifully because it allows Black Goliath to refer to him as Morty from this point forward.
So Black Goliath and Morty fight, and it looks like Morty is going to get the best of Black Goliath. He's got him in a chokehold at 15 feet tall, and then Bill Foster says, "Wait a minute, I can shrink." So he drops down to human size, frees himself from Morty's grasp, then grows big again to fight him.
Yeah, Morty gets the better of him again. Celia is worried that Goliath is about to be killed. And who comes to the rescue, Brian?
Hang on, let me flip through here.
It's Keith.
It's Keith.
Keith shoots him. So he gives Black Goliath the advantage he needs to defeat Mortag, and he hammers him double-fisted. "This is for Durath." And I feel that because I liked Durath in the little time we got to know him.
I did too. So Morty's head comes off, and Black Goliath thinks he killed him, and then he discovers, oh no, Morty is just a million-year-old robot. They then grieve over Durath. Keith particularly, he says, "I don't understand. He was my friend, a nice, gentle guy who never hurt anyone, and now he's dead. Why, Goliath? Tell me why." "I can tell you why, Keith. This is the Marvel Universe, and that's how it goes."
Yeah, right.
Uncle Ben, Gwen Stacy, and now Durath.
Exactly, Durath. Anyway, we end up with Durath's log, but it's being dictated by Keith Jackson.
Right.
He says he'll be keeping this log until I can return it to Durath's home, so I'll be able to tell his people, his family, how he lived and how he died. I think Durath would like that. And,
right.
I would love to know how this magazine lived and how it died. But all we have, Brian, is the note at the beginning of the letters page, which
Read
reads,
that to us.
"As some of you may already know, or may not know, depending on the vagaries of fan word of mouth, this is the last issue of Black Goliath. Like many another mag in their time, bashful Bill Foster's is biting the dust for that most basic of reasons, namely poor sales. Though the letters indicated that there were people out there who liked what Goliath was and what Chris and his various artists were doing, they weren't enough to keep the book going in these days of ever spiraling costs. Which is sad, but which are also the breaks of the game. In parting, though, we present a brief potpourri of the letters received for issues 3 and 4, and we thank all of you who did support the book for sticking around as long as you did." Now, the responses to the letters are also fairly dour, basically saying your questions are never going to be answered. And then at the end, there's another box. It says, "In closing, a personal thank you from the Goliath Armadillo to all you guys out in Union City, New Jersey. We're really glad you liked the book, despite its brief run, and we're sorry Atom Smasher's death upset you so much. Remember, though, this is Marvel, and nobody dies forever. He may pop up in some other book someday." Also, in one of the responses to one of the letters, we are assured that Black Goliath's adventures will continue in the pages of the Champions. But as we know, Brian, such was not to be.
Yeah, I mean, he was a supporting character, and he, we did get to see him beat Stiltman. We got to see Celia appear one last time in the Champions when we wrap up the mystery of Tony Stark's box. But yeah, that was pretty much it for his involvement until we get to Marvel 2-in-1, which I agree we do have to cover at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know, a lot of missed opportunities. I still think the character himself is probably the most underappreciated, superhero of color from that era.
Absolutely.
But when you read, this 5-issue effort, it's easy to see why he's forgotten and underappreciated. They really did not utilize everything that they could have here.
Yeah, and then when they brought him back in Civil War, I was so excited to see him, and then they killed him.
Yeah.
But of course, it's comics, so, dead is not dead. So in any case, I think a great character who never got his time to shine.
Agreed. Now, there's another character who has had his time to shine for over 50 years, I guess. And at one point, he was a member of the Marvel Universe. He stomped around the 616. That is, of course, Tokyo's most famous import, Godzilla. When we come back in January for season 3 of Defenders Dialogue, if you've ever sat with your friends and played the drinking game, who would win in a fight, Thor or Godzilla? How would Tony Stark deal with Godzilla? What would S.H.I.E.L.D. do if Godzilla showed up and decided to eat New York? You are going to find out.
The Fantastic Four, the Champions, Dum Dum Dugan, Nick Fury, a tiny little rat in a sewer. All of this and more in Marvel's Godzilla. I am so excited that we're covering this, Brian.
I am too, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. And again, I want to, we joke on this show that we have 3 listeners. Obviously, we know we have more than that, or we would not be on the air. But we appreciate each and every one of you that tunes in. While we're on hiatus, we hope you enjoy your holidays, whatever holiday you celebrate, or if you don't celebrate a holiday at all, we want you to be safe and happy. And please come back and join us here first week of January.
Absolutely. And thus, Happy New Year. And we'll say that again when we restart. And Happy New Decade.
And happy, what is it you always say, Chris?
Excelsior, true believers.
We'll see you in 2020, folks.
You're listening to American Top 40. More tragedy in the news today. Kim Kardashian has a new baby. What the hell? There's nothing good to listen to. Hey, wait, what's this?
You gotta roll that out.
See, it makes me do weird things. I don't like it.
God damn it.
I'd
be going down on myself?
Shit. Hey guys, it's Bill,
Mick,
Maya.
and Junior.
from the Unsupervised Podcast.
Check us out every Thursday on the Project Entertainment Network.
Take a break from the stress of the world and come have a laugh with or at us.
Bill.
My Favorite Story, a podcast author anthology featuring short fiction from the hosts of the Project Entertainment Network shows. 3 guys with beards: Jim Moore, Jonathan Maybar, and Chris Golden.
Tom Clark from Necrocast, Igborn.
Brian Keene of The Horror Show, Chuck Buda, and Armand Rosamilia of The Mando Method.
Mary San Giovanni of Cosmic Shenanigans.
Jay Wilburn from Matters of Faith.
John Urban, sick of ink stains.
Biz Zung's Mr. Frank.
Available on Kindle and in paperback and through the Project Entertainment Network store.
www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
This has been an exclusive presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.